Hi, good morning. Hope all are fine. Stay home, be happy. I hope you understood me. I will be dealing with class 8 English grammar online classes. Before starting the class, let me introduce you with the text that we follow in this academic year. We will be following the Progress Publishers An Easy Approach to Grammar and Composition for Class 8. Progress Publishers An Easy Approach to Grammar and Composition for Class 8. Okay, let us come to the first chapter. Word, phrase, clause and sentence. This chapter is a revision of what we have learned in the previous academic year. You know what is a letter, what is a word, what is a sentence. In this chapter, we mainly study about phrase and clauses, about which in detail we will be studying in chapter 16. Let me read the first paragraph. A word may be just a letter like A, I, O, or group of letters. Words are used in groups to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. We know what is a letter. Letters together we form words. Words together we get sentences. But what is a phrase and what is a clause? That is what we are going to learn here. A phrase is a group of words. These words together convey a specific meaning but not the complete meaning. We know a sentence is a group of words which conveys the complete meaning. Unlike sentence, this phrase is just conveying only a specific meaning, not the complete meaning. Another point, a phrase has no finite verb. A phrase has no finite verb. That is what is the main character of a phrase. A phrase has no finite verb. When I say finite verb, I hope you know what is finite verb. Verbs which are limited by number, person and time are called finite verbs. I repeat, verbs which are limited by number, person and time are called finite verbs. In other words, when we change the number or the person or the time of the sentence, if the verb is also changing, we can call such kind of verbs as finite verbs. When I say number, it is singular or plural. And when I say time, it means tense. And I hope you know the persons. First person, singular I, and the plural form is we. Second person, singular and plural both are you. And third person, singular, he, she, it. And the plural form is they. I have got a small chart. You can have a look at. Okay. For example, he goes to market. He goes to market. Third person singular is the subject here. And if I change that subject into first person singular, I go to market. When I changed the subject, he goes to market became I go to market. There is a change happening with the verb here. I go to market. He goes to market. In the same way, if the number of the sentence is changed, I go to market, they go to market. There is no change happening in this particular sentence, but it can occur. And time, if I change the tense of the sentence, for example, I go to market, I went to market. I go to market, I went to market. Simple present tense. When I changed that simple present tense into simple past, go became went. There is a change happening. So, when we change the number, person, or tense of the sentence, if the verb is also changing, then such kind of verbs can be called as finite verbs. To understand what is a phrase, we need to understand what is a finite verb. Okay. A phrase has no finite verb. Here in the text there are some examples given for the phrase. In the evening, at sunset, by the riverside, across the desert, in a dilemma, a sheer coincidence, within a week. I repeat. In the evening, at sunset, by the riverside, across the desert, in a dilemma, a sheer coincidence, within a week. If you analyze this group of words or these phrases, you can see there is no finite verbs. So, it is a phrase. Okay. Now, we can move to the next topic, that is clause. A clause is a sentence which is part of a larger sentence. A clause always has finite verb, but it has no independent existence. A clause is always attached to another clause or other clauses. In other words, a clause is a group of words that contains a finite verb and forms part of a sentence. Unlike the phrase, clause is having a finite verb. Okay, and it is part of a sentence. I'll give you the examples, then you will understand in a better way. Before that, clauses are of two types: independent clauses and dependent clauses. Independent clauses are also known as principal clause, and dependent clause is also known as subordinate clause. Okay, let us come to the first one, independent clause. A clause which is a single complete sentence is called an independent clause. A clause which is a single complete sentence is called an independent clause. An independent clause means which can stand by its own. Okay, and the next one is a subordinate clause or dependent clause. A subordinate clause or dependent clause cannot stand alone independently. It must be linked to the main or a dependent clause, linked to the independent clause to express its full meaning. A subordinate clause or a dependent clause cannot stand by its own in a sentence. It needs the help of a independent clause or a principal clause to express its full meaning. Okay, let us see some examples that is given there in the text. Then you will understand what it is. She could not come because she was ill. She could not come because she was ill. She could not come. That is what is the independent clause here in the sentence. And the second part you can see, because she was ill, that is what is the dependent clause. These both the clauses, independent clause and dependent clause, are joined together with the help of a subordinating conjunction called because. Because with the help of the subordinating conjunctions, we have joined the first independent clause plus the second dependent clause together to get a sentence, a meaningful sentence. The second example, I gave him the book which he needed. I gave him the book which he needed. I gave him the book is the independent clause in the sentence. And the second part, which he needed, is the dependent clause. With the help of the subordinating conjunction, which we joined the clauses together to get a sentence with the full meaning. Okay, as a conclusion for the topic, the two clauses have been added up to make complete sense. A group of words that makes complete sense is called a sentence. Okay, in the text you can see a worksheet. I'll read it. Read the following group of words and write P against phrase, C against clause, and S against sentence. First one is a flying saucer. A flying saucer. Some words are given here. You will have to write whether it is a clause, whether it is a phrase or a sentence. First one, a flying saucer. Okay, if you analyze that sentence, you can understand that it is a phrase. There is no finite verb in the words given here. So it is a phrase. Another one, rats are not found here. Rats are not found here. Okay, it is a sentence. It has got a subject, it has got a predicate, finite verb, all these things are here, and it is a meaningful sentence. Okay, And the next one is while it is raining. While it is raining. Okay, it is a clause. There is a finite verb, but it doesn't give a complete meaning. While it is raining. Okay, in the same way there are around 16 questions are given here. When you get the text, you may read it and complete the exercise. Now we can move to the second part of the text or the second part of the chapter. It is sentence arrangement. Sentence arrangement. Order of words in a sentence. When we make a sentence, we have to keep the words in a particular order, in a systematic order, in a proper order, we can say. That is what we are going to see in under this topic. There are around 9 points given, which we have to keep it in mind when we form a sentence. Okay, I'll read. The order of words in a sentence is very important. A sentence cannot make a proper sense unless the words are written or spoken in a proper order. While making sentences, we have to keep the following things in the mind. First point, the subject usually comes at the beginning of the sentence and it is followed by the verb. We all know that the subject comes in the beginning of the sentence followed by the verb. 2 examples are given here. First one, Ravi has gone to Chennai. Ravi has gone to Chennai. Ravi is the subject. Has gone is the verb. Okay, has gone is the verb. Second one, he sleeps. He is the subject here. Sleeps is the verb. Okay. However, in some sentences, the subject comes later. Usually, the subject comes in the beginning, but in some cases, the subject comes later. Some examples are given here. First one, here comes the baby. Here comes the baby. Or here comes the boy. Okay. Second one, strange are the ways of God. Strange are the ways of God. Okay. In the first example, boy is the subject, and the second one, God is the subject, but it is not placed in the beginning. Okay, in drama, poetry and all, you can see such kind of sentences where the subject is placed later. Okay, next point, a transitive verb is mostly followed by an object. A transitive verb is mostly followed by an object. I hope you know what is a transitive verb. Verbs that need objects to complete their meaning are called transitive verbs. Verbs that need objects to complete their meaning are called transitive verbs. Some examples are given here. The child is drinking milk. The child is drinking milk. The child is drinking what? Milk. Milk is the object here. Without that object, the sentence is incomplete. That is why the is drinking is needed an object to complete its meaning. Second one, John killed a fly. John killed a fly. What? John killed what? Fly. A fly. Okay. If there are two objects, next point, if there are two objects, the indirect object should be placed before the direct object. if there are two objects in a sentence, the indirect object should be placed before the direct object. That is what is the normal practice. Indirect object first, then the direct object. Okay. Some verbs take two objects, direct object and indirect objects. Direct object is directly governed by the action of the verb. It answers the question what or whom and is usually an inanimate thing. That is what is a direct object. Okay, it answers the question what or whom and it is usually a inanimate thing, non-living thing, lifeless thing will be the direct object. Indirect object is indirectly governed by the action of a verb. Indirect object is indirectly governed by the action of the verb. It answers the question to whom or for whom. It is usually an animate thing. And the indirect object will be an animate thing. That means it will be a living thing, living being it will be. Okay. The example, they gave us dinner. They gave us dinner. There are two objects in the sentence given there. Us and dinner. They gave us. Us is the indirect object followed by the direct object dinner. Second example, Mary bought Sheila a doll. Mary bought Sheila a doll. Mary bought a doll for Sheila. That is what is the meaning of the sentence. Here, Sheila is the indirect object and a doll is the direct object. Mary bought Sheila a doll. The next point, when an adjective is attributive, it should come before the noun it qualifies. When an adjective is attributive, it should come before the noun it qualifies. Example, I have a red pen. A red pen. Pen is the noun here. Red adjective. Okay, that attribution given to the pen is red pen. Next example, the dog is a faithful animal. The dog is a faithful animal. Adjective, faithful. Animal is the noun there. That particular animal is given an attribution. Faithful animal. Faithful animal. Next point, if we use an adjective predicatively, it should come after the verb. If we use an adjective predicatively, it should come after the verb. He looks angry. He looks angry. When we use the adjective as a predicate, it should come after the verb. He looks angry. He looks angry. Next one. Books are useful. Books are useful. Next point. An adjective phrase or clause should come after the word it qualifies. An adjective phrase or a adjective clause should come after the word it qualifies. Mary has a friend who is very intelligent. Who is very intelligent. That is a clause. Mary has a friend who is very intelligent. Who is very intelligent. It is a clause, and that particular clause in this sentence is working as an adjective. That is why it is called an adjective clause, an adjective clause. Second example, Tom is a boy with a smiling face. With a smiling face. Tom is a boy with a smiling face. And you can see it is a phrase. Phrase. With a smiling face. With a smiling face. And that particular phrase is working in this sentence as an adjective. That is why it is called an adjective phrase. Next point you can see. An adverb is placed close to the word it modifies. An adverb is placed close to the word it modifies. Some people never tell the truth. Some people never tell the truth. Okay, never tell. The word tell is modified with the help of adverb never. Never tell the truth. He is too lazy to work. He is too lazy to work. Next point. When an adverb modifies an entire assertive sentence, it should be placed at the beginning. When an adverb modifies an entire assertive sentence, it should be placed at the beginning. In the previous example, we have seen that the adverb just modifies the word only one word. Never tell. But here, fortunately, the bus was on time. Fortunately, the bus was on time. Here in this example, this particular adverb fortunately modifies the entire sentence. Not only any word, but the entire sentence. It is modified with the help of the adverb fortunately. Second example. Certainly it was a narrow escape. Certainly it was a narrow escape. Certainly modifies the entire sentence. And the last point. In WH questions, the question word should come at the beginning and then the auxiliary verb and the subject. But questions whose answers are in yes or no, the auxiliary verb comes at the beginning to be followed by the subject. In WH questions, question word WH questions comes in the beginning, then auxiliary verb. But in yes or no type questions, that means the answer will be yes or no. In such kind of questions, in the beginning we will be using the auxiliary verb, then the subject. For example, where are you going? That is WH questions. Where are you going? In the beginning, WH word. That means the question word we use. Where are you going? Where is the question word? Are is the auxiliary verb. Where are you going? And second example, why did he come late? Why did he come late? That is also WH questions. Why did he come late? Why is the question word? Did is the auxiliary verb. But in yes or no type question, see the example. Did it rain yesterday? Did it rain yesterday? The auxiliary verb comes in the beginning, followed by the subject, then verb. Did it rain yesterday? Did it rain yesterday? Have you gone to Chennai? Have you gone to Chennai? Auxiliary verb comes in the beginning. Okay, with this our first chapter is over. The chapter is very small. When you get the text, you may read it properly and analyze each sentence and each topics very properly, and try to understand why it is so, how it is so. Ask all these questions by yourself and try to find out or understand what it is. Before concluding, I would like to just sum up what we have learned today. Mainly, we studied about a phrase. A phrase is a group of words. These words together convey a specific meaning but not the complete meaning. Phrase just convey a specific meaning, not the complete meaning. And the main character of the phrase is a phrase has no finite verb, and we have seen what is the finite verb. Verbs which are limited by number, person and time are called a finite verb. Then we have seen the next topic, a clause. What is a clause? We have seen independent clause, dependent clause. Independent clause is also known as principal clause. Dependent clause is also known as subordinate clause. We will be studying about the conjunctions in another chapter. And in the second part of the chapter, we studied about the order of words in a sentence, how we will arrange words in a sentence. In a sentence, different parts of speeches are coming. How the order will be, what order we will follow. That is what we have seen in the second part of the chapter. Order of words in a sentence. Okay, thank you.